I don't know if anybody else enjoyed that, but David had a good time. When he asked me, what song do you want to sing with the kids today? I said, I want you to come up and sing the hippo song. And he said, don't tempt me. And I said, no, I really want you to come up and sing it. Because we're starting a series in Genesis. We're going to be looking at the book of Genesis for the next several weeks. And I want to try to do something a little bit different. We want to look at this account and search for what it tells us about God. Usually, I don't know about you, it's probably just me. Usually when I sit down and I read, I often find myself in the story. So I'll look at Abram's account, his call to follow God, and I'll think about choices in my own life that I need to make. Or I'll read about Joseph and think about times where I've had suffering and trials and try to figure out what God is doing. But I want to try this time, at least as much as I'm able, to see what the story tells us about the author, about the great artist that God is, especially with today's account. And so if I mess up occasionally and, revert back to type and find myself in the story, just remind me that we're in search of who God is. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so. God called the expanse sky, and there was evening, and there was morning the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear." And it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetation, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening, and there was morning the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark seasons and days and years, and let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning the fourth day. And God said, "Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the expanse of the sky." So God created the great creatures of the sea and every living and moving thing with which the waters teems, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creatures that move along the ground, and wild animals, each according to its kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to all the beasts of the earth and to all the birds of the air and to all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has breath of life in it, I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw that all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in their vast array. By the seventh day God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day he rested from all his work, and God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created. Okay, the first thing I notice, God rests. That might seem like I'm cheating because it was the last thing we read. But that's very important to me because it tells me something amazing about him. If he rests, then he is also restless. The two kind of go together. And I'm really excited about that because I have a hard time resting. And I know I said I wasn't going to talk about me, but for just a minute, can we? We humans seem to be doers. We like doing. We plan vacations and even do more. We love doing. And so does God. His activities make mine seem rather lame. When I pause and I see this account in Scripture, the words can't capture the imagination of God. That's what really jumps off the page at me. He is a dreamer, an inventor, an artist, a mathematician. I remember several years ago, there was a very violent, devastating tsunami, and it was tragic. But I also remember in its wake, scientists were amazed at the creatures of the sea that washed up on the shore. They were amazed because no one had ever seen them. It seems they always existed. We were just unaware. But God knew that they existed. He had made each one for his own joy. And that's something that boggles my mind. Because in an effort where I'm always trying to make everything about myself, to understand that God has made creation for himself because it brings him glory and he experiences joy, that's a remarkable thing to pause and think about. In a way, it's the same kind of joy that you and I experience in all of that doing that we like to do. When we finish a task that has been filled with sweat, maybe tears, and love, and we stand back and we take pride in our work, we're mimicking the Father. Because you see, that's the other thing that I learn from watching this. You and I are only imitators. We're just cheap copies. We're imitating God, our Creator. And that's very important. And just as every parent, did you ever have this experience? You pause and look at your kids, and you see both your strengths and, unfortunately, your faults. And you see them so evident in your children. Or as adults, have you ever paused to look back at your parents and see the traits that you took from mom or from dad and how you were like them? God has intended us to pause and notice that we are like him. We are imitators of the Father. Because in a very real sense, we are supposed to see him exactly for who he is. Creator God, but also Father of all creation. He is our Father. and we mimic him. We seek to create life. By that I mean not just carve out a living. Have you ever tried to just carve out a living? It's a very different thing than carving out a life. Life is full. Living is day to day. And we are meant to be creators of life. It's very clear in the story that we're supposed to mimic God, the creator of life, and we are supposed to create life. And so the challenge is to not just build houses, but to create homes. We're supposed to mimic our Father in that. We are striving to create memories, not just pastime. There's a very big difference. We seek to create joy in the midst of suffering because we're creators like our Father is. We're supposed to try to create joy in the midst of heartache. And I think that is perhaps my favorite thing that this text tells me about God. Not just the amazing creation. I am amazed by it, especially the outer reaches of space. I wanted to apply for the Mars mission, but Shauna said no. I said, surely they need educators or pastors or somebody to watch after the teenagers, right? She said our grandchildren would be too far away. So no, I can't go to space. But space is amazing to me. The image that's on the screen. If human history were just a single day, about 4:15 p.m., I think we discovered some stuff out in space that we could actually see for the first time. Vast worlds, expanses of nebula, the beauty of galaxies, a universe that is amazing, and God was enjoying it long before we ever found a telescope. And so while I am stunned by the beauty of his creation and the joy he takes simply in being a creator, the thing that I love about this text is that God creates light in darkness. And we jump back to the beginning. While the end tells me he loves to work, and I'm thankful for that, the beginning tells me that light follows dark. And that order is very important to me because it tells me something that I need to know. Darkness exists. It is real. It is present in our world. And yet God is light. And so when darkness falls and evening comes and fear begins to rise in my heart, am I the only one? And darkness can be many, many things, can't it? It's when you can't see far enough ahead and you don't know what's around the bend. You don't know what will come, except this story tells us something about God. Do you know what follows darkness? Light. Morning follows night. The order is important. Because we tend to think the opposite way. If I can pause for just a minute and talk to my fellow gray-haired people in the room. We think the opposite way, don't we? We think we started with morning and darkness is falling, and soon we will close our eyes and darkness will be what we know. Lie. That is a lie. Because I know something about God. Do you know what follows when you close your eyes? Light. And isn't that good news? Because the same lesson that Genesis is teaching me about God, I need to know in my world today. Because it seems very dark. Do you know what follows dark? Morning. It will come. And that is an amazing thing about God. Because you see, it gets me back to the thing I noticed first. He is not done yet. And I take great comfort in those words from Jesus, that the Father is still working, and in fact has been working since the first day. And while I am thrilled to think in terms of rest and inheriting an eternal rest from our Father, I am overjoyed to know that He is working right now to turn darkness into light, and He has not finished. There's something else about that really makes me excited, because it is so easy for me to think of myself. He is a great artist and has created an amazing masterpiece. If we were to think of it as this beautiful painting, the artist has begun every brushstroke, and you can see his fingerprints. You know his brushstrokes, and you know how he's painting the picture, and it's a vast, beautiful masterpiece. But you are in the masterpiece. He created you. And the amazing thing about God, He is not done creating. That means He's not done with you. And while I'm tempted to see myself as the focal point of the masterpiece, I know that I'm not. But the amazing thing is, not only does the artist enjoy the picture, he has jumped into it. He is present in it. It doesn't just bear his brushstrokes and fingerprints. It doesn't just spark something about his personality. It isn't just hanging on the wall. He has become part of the painting. And that is great news for me, because it means that the creative work of God, while present in the beauty of the world that I see, is also present in me. That the creative power of God, the great artist, is not done yet. And at whatever point of the story you are on, I want to remind you for just a moment today to squint and peer from within the painting and see the artist, but not just out there in the vastness of the universe. Close your eyes and see him present in you. Because through Christ, God has jumped into the picture. He is not far off. He is present with his creative power to bring exactly the force you need to change whatever circumstance you find. Because morning follows night. And Jesus is present to do exactly what you need done. Because, do you remember? God is a doer. He does. He's present. He's not simply waiting. Very little waiting in that text. Did you notice that about God? He's just like, boom, 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 boom. Bigger, better. It's all good. And that's the other thing I learned about God. He makes good stuff. He makes good stuff. And he makes it for his joy. His glory. And that's one thing you can depend on, that you were meant to bring God joy, which means He's about to do some really good stuff in your life. Whatever tomorrow brings, God intends to make it good. And His work is not finished until He is able to step back and say, that's good. That's very good. So, if God is present with us, if Christ, the revelation of God, is present with us, is tomorrow going to be a good day? It is. Even if the night seems a bit dark, can you hold on to this truth about God? That the one who spoke light into existence, the one who is light, has stepped into your world, your life, for the purpose of creating not just a living, but life itself, teeming with joy. Now, if you're here this morning, maybe that's the first time you ever heard somebody read Genesis out loud in church. I know that might seem strange, but we read the whole first chapter. Maybe that's the first time you've ever heard those words, and to think about a creator God. And if that's your story, if that's where you are, and you've never really paused to think about God creating you and wanting to do something in your life and transform your world, the entire purpose of your life has been for this moment for you to recognize that you have a creator, a Father who loves you and has sent His Son, Jesus, to save you. And we would invite you to make that declaration that you believe that God is the creator, that Jesus is His Son, the revelation of God in the flesh, that He died upon the cross and rose from the dead. And we would love to teach you about that and help you in professing that faith. And if you're a believer and maybe it seems a bit dark around you, maybe there are some challenges on the horizon and you simply need the church to gather around you and pray for light to be seen, for God's glory to be revealed, for joy to be present again. We want to join with you in whatever your need is. Would you come forward and make that known while we stand together and sing?